Thank you for watching African Elements. In this episode, we look at the impact of the Haitian Revolution. The Republic of Haiti shaped U.S. politics around slavery, heightened tension between North and South, and impacted black women in often overlooked ways. We'll explore those impacts coming up. Welcome back to African Elements, where we take classroom content in Black and Africana studies and make it freely available. I'd like to give a huge thanks to our Patreon members for supporting this content. You can join them for as little as $1 a month and get ad-free content and exclusive videos available only to Patreon subscribers. At various membership tiers, you can also have access to course syllabi, PowerPoint presentations, and entire course Canvas shells. Or you can support this channel with a like and subscribe. Be sure to hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified when new content drops. For this video, we look at the various ways that the Haitian Revolution impacted the Black experience in the United States. Less than 5 years after the United States Constitution was ratified and the U.S. became the first independent republic in the Western Hemisphere, the Republic of Haiti soon followed by becoming the second independent republic. As a result of a successful slave uprising, the Haitian Revolution played a critical role in shaping the U.S. in its formative years through the Civil War. In France's wealthiest colony, only a few hundred miles from U.S. shores, black slaves in Saint-Domingue produced 60% of the Western world's coffee by the 1780s, and 40% of the sugar imported by France and Britain. The Journal of one plantation manager in Saint-Domingue told of the murderous conditions under which slaves toiled and the desperate measures they undertook to escape those conditions. March 6, 1768. We are left with a Creole negress named Zabeth, who I'm despairing of. From her earliest infancy, she's been a thief and a maroon. These qualities have only become more prominent with age. Seeing that she was about to die because she had been chained for so long, I had the chain removed without her having requested it. The same evening at 8 o'clock, she stole the belongings of another negress. She was captured in the act. I held myself to threatening her that if she once again attempted flight, I would have her chained for the remainder of her days. She did not hesitate to make all the right promises, and in the same breath was off to the Lemaire residence, the neighboring plantation. 2 days later, I sent along to her some material and a change of clothing, but as soon as she received those provisions, she was off again. Caught once more, she was sent to the mill and chained. About a month ago, before daybreak, she saw that the mules were tired, and in order to wound herself slightly, she slipped her hand between the rollers. She was stopped on the spot. She had 3 broken fingers, and humanity demanded that she be placed in the hospital, without, however, removing the large chain. April 11, 1768. Seeing that she was about to die in chains, I had the chain removed after having had her own grave dug before her eyes, with her even removing a few shovels full of dirt. Despite this spectacle, which should have intimidated her for good, she fled once again. Seeing that she's near death, I've had her chained in a mill, a better place for her to die than a hospital. Perhaps the example will have some effect, for I see that the gentle treatment accorded to her has inspired 2 other slaves to become maroons. According to this account, within the span of about a month, Zabeth had attempted to escape no less than 3 times under clear threat of death, and also had taken to self-injury. On August 22, 1791, the slaves of Saint-Domingue staged a revolt under the leadership of Toussaint Louverture. Due to widespread absentee landlordism, slaves outnumbered whites by about 10 to 1. By January 1, 1804, the former colony's independence was officially declared, and the territory was renamed after its indigenous Arawak name, Haiti. The impact of the Haitian Revolution was far-reaching. The most immediate impact was the Louisiana Purchase on April 11, 1803. With the impending loss of France's wealthiest colony, Napoleon had no further need for its large holdings on the American mainland. In a fit of disgust, he reportedly exclaimed, "Damn sugar, damn coffee, damn colonies, I renounce Louisiana forever." It was at that moment that then-President Thomas Jefferson sent emissaries to France seeking only to obtain New Orleans and navigation rights on the Mississippi. To their shock, France had agreed to hand over the whole territory of Louisiana for a mere $15 million. All at once, the Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the United States and opened up a dilemma. Would this vast new territory be opened up to slaveholding or non-slaveholding interests? The Constitution passive-aggressively sidestepped the issue of slavery, vaguely referencing it but making no specific mention of the institution. In fact, the word slavery appears nowhere in the Constitution. Absent any clear constitutional remedy on what was to become of any new territories added to the United States, the Haitian Revolution and the Louisiana Purchase set in motion a chain of compromises that ultimately paved the way to the Civil War. The question posed by the Louisiana Territory was resolved when Missouri applied for statehood in 1820. To maintain the balance between the free and slaveholding states' interests, Missouri was admitted as a slave state, while the southern boundary of Missouri was extended in the Louisiana Territory to mark the boundary between the slaveholding and non-slaveholding regions. To provide balance in the Senate, the northern section of Massachusetts was severed, creating the new non-slaveholding state of Maine in order to offset Missouri. So, while the constitutional crisis was temporarily averted, the Missouri Compromise was an indirect consequence of the Haitian Revolution, which also indirectly led to the westward expansion of slavery on the frontier and ultimately on a path to civil war. The Haitian Revolution sent shockwaves throughout the Western Hemisphere. Many of those fleeing the conflict came to U.S. shores with tales of carnage and bloodbath. Many in the United States, particularly those in the South, were understandably fearful of a slave revolt taking place only a few hundred miles from U.S. shores, especially since there were already places in the South where slaves outnumbered whites. This fear-based reaction prompted Southerners to enact harsher slave codes. As we've seen, the cultural adaptations Africans undertook for survival in the Western Hemisphere largely laid the groundwork for revolt. Africans of the Middle Passage represented a wide variety of ethnic groups. In Haiti, Vodou blended the various practices of West African religion in a way that dissolved their ethnic differences and served as the ideological glue that unified the various groups and held the revolution together. Recognizing that threat and the role that Vodou played in revolt, the practice of Vodou was banned throughout the South. Along with Vodou, drumming was also outlawed, and laws were enacted that forbade blacks from congregating in groups of 3 or more. Their movement was restricted, allowing slaves to travel only with written permission from the slave owner, and travel at night was restricted. Southerners had good reason to fear the slave revolt would spread to the United States. Of the major slave conspiracies in the United States, Gabriel Prosser, 1800, Charles DeLand in 1811, Denmark Vesey in 1822, and Nat Turner in 1831, all in some way invoked the Haitian Revolution. As many of the slaves entering the United States came by way of the Caribbean, it's not difficult to understand why Congress moved to end the international slave trade on March 2, 1807. The tales of slaughter Haitian refugees brought to the United States made it obvious why the import of Caribbean slaves was no longer desirable. But newly arrived slaves from Africa were also known to be at higher risk of revolt. In the wake of the Haitian Revolution, Thomas Jefferson signed legislation banning the international slave trade that went into effect the moment it was constitutionally permissible, on January 1, 1808. Yet another indirect consequence of the Haitian Revolution, the impact of the ban was devastating. With Eli Whitney's invention of the cotton gin in 1793, a machine that quickly and easily separated the cotton fibers from their seeds, the South became even more deeply entrenched in slavery. By 1860, cotton alone accounted for 58% of all annual value of U.S. exports. The dramatic increase in production led to a huge demand for slaves, and by 1850 the slave population ballooned to 3.2 million. That demand, combined with the closing of the international slave trade, gave rise to one of the most horrific aspects of slavery, the domestic slave trade. The domestic slave trade was the internal traffic of slaves from within the United States, typically the Upper South, to the plantations of the Deep South. As author Angela Davis explains in her book, Women, Race, and Class, black women bore the brunt of the wholesale exploitation of black slaves, as she posits that while considered genderless with regard to slaveholders, black women simultaneously bore the brunt of sexual exploitation. That's to say that enslaved black women were not subject to the socially defined roles that confined women to the home, but rather worked in the fields alongside black men. Far from being considered the weaker sex, black women were expected to bear the same physical burdens and punishments as black men. That black women could still be exploited sexually for their capacity to bear children adds an extra layer of burden for black women. Black men, for example, were biologically incapable of the experience of working all day in a cotton field while 8 months pregnant. Even while pregnant, black women were also not spared the lash, an experience that black men were likewise biologically incapable of having. So, while black men were exploited sexually as stallions forced to impregnate breeders for sale in the domestic slave trade, they didn't bear the same biological burdens that black women did. The results were catastrophic. In addition to the commodified sexual exploitation of black women, came the wholesale breakup and destruction of families as individual members were sold off one by one to feed the growing market in the South. So, the westward expansion of slavery, heightening of tensions between slaveholding and non-slaveholding interests, the closing of the international slave trade, and the wholesale exploitation of black women are just some of the direct and indirect impacts of the Haitian Revolution. Thank you for watching, and now it's time for our comment of the week. This one comes from Chosen One, who writes, "You're clout chasing, plain and simple." Ironically, this comment comes in response to a video I did in the series titled Say What?, in which I examined Dane Calloway's video on the effects of social engineering. I say ironically because the purpose of the video is to point out flawed epistemology and help folks avoid fallacious reasoning that leads to flawed conclusions. So, in her comment, she's actually given us yet another example of flawed reasoning. Can you spot the logical fallacy here? If so, leave it in the comments below. Once again, this is Darius Spearman, and you're watching African Elements. Until next time, I'll see you in the comments.